Happy expiration, everybody. Welcome to June, another episode of After the Close. Very special live episode we have today, and with me we have three MJ Serpicos. We have Michael J Serpico, the senior now. Michael J Serpico, what do we call the middle one? I don't even know.
Well, there's no junior. It'll just be
Michael J Serpico,
yeah.
And we got the newest addition, Michael J Serpico, the baby, here joining us. So be ready to throw in your 2 cents anytime you want, pal. But yeah, so with me this month we have my actual dad. How are you today, sir?
Doing well. Glad to be down here. Glad to see the family. Glad to see the girls and then MJ here.
That's right. We got everybody together. This is the first time meeting the baby.
Right.
So he's about 2 months old. He's a smiley little guy.
He has a big smile. Look.
There you go. He's milking it for the camera. Is what he's doing. But I'm happy to have you guys down. Your first time meeting the baby. Now, were you surprised when we told you a couple months ago that we were going to do another Michael J?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I was happy, but I'd like to see the name continue. But it's great to have another grandkid. How many times?
You're fine.
5 grandkids is a lot.
You do. You have 5 grandkids now, and this is the first boy.
First boy.
So. I'm sure you're never going to say that you prefer boys to girls or anything, but were you a little bit like, oh, we got the boy in, like we got him?
I actually wasn't. I was just happy we had another healthy one, and that's really what it's all about. That's
right. That's really the key. I'm really happy we got to do this in person and live, because I think there's just a little bit different tone and it's just a little more fun when you actually get to sit and do this. I'm trying to get a few more live ones in. I get to show off my kitchen.
Beautiful. You did a nice job.
Yeah, this is one of the perks of it. It's a known fact on this line that I was not working for a little bit, and one of the advantages was that I actually got to do a bunch of stuff around the house. So we got the kitchen repainted, all done, nice while I was home. This was one of my big projects. This is now the crown.
Job. Yeah, it looks great.
Crown jewel of the house for now. So we'll hopefully be able to keep that going. And I just want to show it off for all the for my fan singular.
Yeah, for the fan base. Why not?
That's right. So we were saying we got the first boy, and now this is my 3rd child. But you raised 3 boys.
3 boys.
So just what was that like?
Well, it was a lot of fun. It really was. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was totally different with each one.
Yeah.
And as we added to the family, it got more and more not stressful, but more and more difficult to manage things. But it was good. We enjoyed it.
Got it.
We were very lucky though, because Mom got to stay at home with the 3 kids, and that was a big help because.
For sure, yeah. One of the things we talk a lot about here is just like that work-life balance and figuring out just how to make it go.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate. Like my wife and I, we both are working now, but we're both remote, which is phenomenally valuable when you have kids. I can't even imagine having to get up and out 5 days a week to an office on top of getting 3 kids up and out in the morning.
A lot of people did it. A lot of people make it work. You do what you have to do when you have kids.
That's true. I'm sure we'd figure it out, but it just wouldn't have been as an enjoyable.
It's a little choppy.
Yes. Yeah.
Every day is a new adventure. You don't know who's going to wake up sick, and you don't know who's going to tell you the last minute they had a project due that day, or But when we were very lucky though, because with Mom home, she kind of organized everything, and I was lucky to have her around because to do it by I just couldn't believe all the detail involved in it.
You'd be hiding in the corner sucking your thumb if you were by yourself.
It would be very difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm very lucky too. I mean, we each have our own delegated responsibilities at home, and I cover my stuff, and I don't think I could take on one more thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my wife handles all the other stuff, right? Thank you. So we like I said earlier, this is my third. So fatherhood is not something that I'm particularly new to. I've been a dad for a couple of years now, but as a boy, I was starting to think during the whole lead up, the whole time, like, ooh, what's it going to be like having a boy? What are we going to do a little bit different? What's going to, because we have the Barbie doll houses and we have all the, I've had my nails done and I get my hair done and I have to get my makeup done and all that stuff from the girls. But now we're going to start to look forward to the boy stuff. And so my question to you is, and I'm your oldest, let's just say that I was your first.
All right.
When you were gearing up to be a dad, what were like the things that you were like, and you actually I should say it, did you know I was going to be a boy, or was it a surprise that day?
We knew.
You knew. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were gearing up, like, what were you, ooh, I can't wait to do this with the boy?
Really, it goes in stages, and you take things as they come. Mm-hmm. When the kids are little, when you were first born, it was just a challenge to try to get up every day and go to work. Right. You weren't a sleeper, so mm-hmm. you were up for the first year. I don't think you slept more than 2 or 3 hours. So it was every day was, well, okay, well, let's see what we have to do today. Did Mike sleep? Well, he didn't sleep. All right.
Yeah. Same.
And so we were, like I said, I was very fortunate that Mom was home, because in those days, you couldn't work remotely.
Right.
So I had to get up every day and go to the office and do what I had to do. So she was good. Like, if you got up during the night, she'd take you in the other room and I would get some sleep. Mm-hmm. And then I'd get up in the morning and I'd say, is everything all right? She'd say, yeah, just go.
Yeah.
But then as you got bigger, we kind of, I think really our... not a challenge, but we tried to find out what you were gravitating towards and what you mm-hmm. liked and what you didn't like, and tried to give you as much experience doing different things that we could. So, we tried baseball, and we tried, mm-hmm. basketball and football and, whatever it was, we just said, okay, let's try that. If they like it, we'll do it again. If they don't like it, we'll do something else. That's all.
Right. Now, I would put my level of athleticism as a child at, like, fair. Like, I was not going to be a professional sports player. It became pretty evident pretty quickly. When I played sports, I did what I wanted to do. How disappointed were you? Let's do it that way.
I wasn't disappointed at all.
No.
I think you told me one time that you would have preferred that I didn't coach all the teams, and if I would have spent more time in one-on-one with you guys with the sports. But I tried to help out with the...
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, you did a lot of t-ball coaching, a lot of soccer coaching for the other ones, and
we tried to be down there as much as we could, because we wanted to get to know the other people down there. We didn't want to just drop off little kids with strangers. And a lot of people did that, but we didn't.
Well, it was what? There was the 90s. There was still a little bit of that, gives a crap feel.
Well, when you guys were small... Mm-hmm. I mean, we wanted to make sure that we were there all the time, because we didn't know who else was down there, and, and what other types of characters there were. There were a lot of characters,
there's still a lot of characters out there. You okay? You're all right.
We did our best to be as present as we could with each kid. Mm-hmm. And I think the challenges really didn't start until we had the third one, because at that point, you're outnumbered.
One guy's going to baseball. Let's put personality of each aside. Let's just talk quantity.
Yeah. Well, you have to be able to give each one individual attention, and mm-hmm. everybody's different. So you have to kind of find out what they like and what they're good at and what they enjoy, and you kind of just go with the flow,
That's true. Like, I find myself now that we have 3, and it's only been a very short time, but that move from man to zone, mm-hmm. that we are feeling that now. It is a little bit of a challenge, and
along the way, you figure it out. And you know, like fortunately, like I used to put in a lot of hours at work.
Right.
Because, you know, I wanted
to.
I wanted to make sure I kept my career on track a little bit, and we needed a paycheck, so it was okay. But Mom used to have things organized.
Right.
Like if I was coaching a team, you know, I'd have to be at the field at 5 o'clock.
Right.
So I'd run in at like 5 to 5, and I'd change my clothes, and she'd give me a sandwich, and I'd run out.
Right.
And it was teamwork. You know, she was really on top of things, and she would tell me in the morning, well, this has to happen, and you got to be here at 5 o'clock, and you got to be here at 8 o'clock, and we do it. That's all.
That's true.
It wasn't hard. It was just hectic. Hectic is the best word.
That's fair. Hectic would probably be the PG-13 way of putting it.
Yeah, it was difficult some days, but it was okay.
Right. You did a lot of the coaching and a lot of the sports stuff. I remember that growing up, and I remember it was a team sport, so you'd also have to deal with other people's children. And I'm starting to learn what it's like to deal with other people's children as well. And I can tell you, no offense to anyone out there, but don't care for them. My kids are okay. I don't necessarily need to be dealing with other people's children too often.
In the beginning, I was worried about that, but other people's kids are all right. Other people's kids' parents are usually a problem.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah, everybody thinks their kid is going to be the next, you know, Willie Mays or the next,
right.
you know, Aaron Judge or whatever. But, you know, and it doesn't work out that way sometimes.
No, not ever. Sometimes you end up with the JV kid.
I remember kids' parents asking me, you know, about scholarships. So
and how old were they at the time?
6 years old, you know, and I used to say, look, you know, this kid, he hasn't had a beer yet, he hasn't met a girl yet, why don't you just let him have some fun, you know, it's baseball or it's soccer or whatever it is, you know, we're here to have fun. If they have fun this year, maybe they'll come back next year.
Right, and that's the next step to the scholarship, is getting them to come back when they're 7.
If they hate it, then they don't come back, and that's okay. Then they, you know, the commercial used to say that everybody's going to be a professional at something.
Yeah.
It might not be baseball, but it might be engineering, it might be a professional taxi driver, who knows, you know?
Right, that's true, but at 5 years old, you're not dragging your kid to taxi cab practice.
Yeah, it was difficult, and you know, dealing with the personalities of the other parents, that was always a challenge. And some of the other coaches were a little extreme.
Extreme?
Yeah. Like we had a guy, one of the guys who ran the soccer league.
Yeah.
And we used to do it on
I remember this guy.
Mom told me not to name any names because this might go viral. And I think he passed away, to tell you the truth. But the long story short, somebody came up to me on a Saturday and he said, well, I work every other Saturday. Is it okay with you if we just bring my 6-year-old son to soccer practice on Saturday? So this guy overheard that, and he stepped in and he says, well, you have to decide right now what's more important, your career or your son's soccer future.
Which one? Oh, Jesus.
So I took him aside. I said, you come when you can, you know, no big deal. And I said, just pay when you come. Don't pay for the whole thing, you know. So, but you get people like that. And in baseball, we had an extreme coach. I mean, he used to, now you figure T-ball is 5 years old.
Right, yeah.
So you got 5-year-old kids out there, and they all, you know, you're pitching, you have to pitch to them, and they take 10 swings each.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, you have to throw at least 20 pitches to each kid. So 13 kids on the team, 20 pitches each. By the end of the
professional ball players get like taken out of the game after like 80, 90 pitches.
There was no pitch.
You're a dad with a desk job throwing 120 pitches 3 times a week.
And so the funniest story I can remember is that one kid was up at bat and he couldn't hit, and all the parents are sitting there, and it was a game, you know, and so I must have said, "Oh, give it a chance. You know, he'll get it. You know, be patient." And the other coach yelled out, "Have you ever seen this kid's father? This kid don't have a chance. He'll never hit the ball." And I was like, "Oh." And everybody's looking at each other. Did he really say that?
Yeah, he really said that. I'm not at all surprised.
But like I said, some of them are a little extreme,
Yeah.
And the other thing about it is some of the kids were really, really good. Mm-hmm. Like at 4 or 5 years old, they could catch and they could throw.
Right.
And other kids didn't have a clue.
They didn't have a clue. Yeah.
So your big fear was that the kid would pick up a ball at shortstop and fire it to second, and the kid at second base would be looking up at the airplanes and get hit in the face.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
It was kind of strange, but you get used to it, and you learn to just take it all in stride. And at the end of the day, you say, well, nobody got hurt today. It was a good day.
Right. No, let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. We got it. We're doing this. The sports thing. So the running joke that here has been that we're going to turn him into a kicker. He's going to be a professional kicker for the like an NFL kicker. That's our plan. Because I did the math and the gene pool here. We got about what? I'm 5'9.5" or so. I'm 165 or so.
Yeah, built just like a kicker.
Built just like a kicker. Yeah, I looked it up. Professional kickers come in around there. They're probably a little more muscular than I am, but they come in. So he's got a shot at that.
Well, he's not a European soccer player, so you might have to train him a little bit and work on his calves. But
we're gonna get him rolling, But what is you at no point, and I think this is you never really forced us to practice. You were never whipping us to get out there and I got to do my 25 pop fly catches a day, my 25 grounders to grind it out. You were never one to you were not King Richard and like that.
I really didn't. Well, again, I wanted you guys to have a balanced life, mm-hmm. and any overload in one area or the other. It was difficult. And plus, you had other things to do.
Yeah.
You weren't just playing baseball. I used to tell the parents, I remember when Patrick played third grade basketball. That was a challenging year, to coach a third grade basketball team. But the parents, I used to tell them, well, we practice twice a week. Mm-hmm. These kids are not going to learn how to play basketball practicing twice a week because they're not getting very many touches on the ball, and so you have to really give them a basketball,
right,
and let them go in the yard or in the garage and practice their dribbling, practice their passing. Do it. Just let them work on it a little bit when they're not here.
Right.
But if this is an event twice a week, it's not. They're never going to get it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's got to become what they do, mm-hmm. If they really like it, they'll practice. If they don't like it, hey, they spend the year playing basketball twice a week and they move on to something else.
Right.
It's not the end of the world, they're just kids. Mm-hmm. And I think, Mom really helped me keep things in perspective, mm-hmm. Because I'm kind of, she calls me a person of extremes. When I get into something, I really get into it and I keep after it and keep after it. And we didn't want to do that with you guys. Mm-hmm. We wanted you guys to have some balance. Mm-hmm. And so, so you go to baseball practice. If you want to throw the ball around the yard, that's great. Yeah. If you want to just come down and play. But
so I don't recall any of us putting pressure on ourselves too much either when it comes to at least sports.
Yeah, well, sports is one aspect.
Right. I remember saying, and to fast forward a little bit, I think once we got a little older, maybe 11, 12, 13, not 5, 6, 7, but I remember, some of these other kids, this is what they do.
Right.
They're playing. They're not just it's springtime, it's time for baseball. They're start the weight training in the winter. They're playing fall ball. They're they're making deliberate practice on the.
And they had good coaching and everything. Mm-hmm. You read that book, Outliers, right?
Yeah.
And one of the stories in there was the Canadian hockey team.
Yes, yeah.
All the Canadian hockey team were born between January and March.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because in Canada, the age breakdown is between January and December.
Yeah.
So when the kids come to play hockey, the kids that were born in January are a year older than the kids that were born in December.
Yeah.
So they're a little bigger and a little stronger and a little faster. And So they go through their 4-year-old training,
Right.
and they can skate better than the kids that are a year younger than them.
Sure, yeah.
So then they get on an all-star team, and then they get spotted, and they find that these kids have talent, so they put them in these programs where some of these kids that are born in December were good, but they just weren't as big and as strong, and they didn't get the technical training and the attention that the other kids got.
Yeah.
And so the same thing happens with sports in the United States is the kids that are bigger and stronger make the all-star team.
Right.
And so they get to go and travel with the team, and then they wind up on AAU teams, and then they wind up with, traveling and doing all this other good stuff, which is good.
Yeah.
And that's what their life becomes, is being a ball player. But if you're an average ball player, you don't get that attention. And if you're a late bloomer and you don't develop until you're 16, well, you're way behind those other kids that were bigger and stronger when they were little. So it's just one of those things. And unfortunately, if you realize that, when your kids are small, you realize, well, learning to read is just as important as learning to throw a baseball.
Yeah, arguably more so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, schoolwork has to be done every day. You have to make sure that you're developing well-rounded people and not just baseball players or soccer players.
Right.
And that's what the key is, I think.
It's interesting you raise that point. When I was substitute teaching, I sat through one day where they were explaining to the middle school students what it will be like to move up to high school. And their intended emphasis was on their need to stay disciplined in their studies.
Right.
That was the intention of the lecture.
Right.
But among the slides, they had talked about some of the electives which you're allowed to take
All right,
in high school in this particular school district. One of those electives included weight training.
Okay.
Like in a PE vibe. Right. So that was a mistake on their part, because immediately half of the boys in the room wanted to know how they got into weight training.
Yeah, there's a rumble in the crowd.
Right. Immediately, they're all, because these fine gentlemen, many of whom thought themselves athletes, thought themselves maybe professional on the professional track, despite the fact that being, in a random public school in 7th grade.
They had no idea,
As soon as they heard weight training, they're like, how do I get into the weight training? I want to bulk up and whatnot. So reading, unfortunately, wasn't their primary goal.
Well, reading is important, math skills are important, but everybody doesn't have that aptitude either.
No, that's true.
And part of raising kids is realizing, you don't want to steer them in any direction, but you want to realize what their capabilities are.
Right.
Some people are college material, some people are, are trade skill. And Mike Rowe, one of my favorite people is Mike Rowe, and when he talks
dirty jobs.
Well, he does dirty jobs,
Yeah.
but he talks a lot about the need to have people go into trade school because there's a need for that.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't need to go into college and generate $1 million worth of debt.
Yeah.
So you can go and learn a skill and make a nice living doing something with your hands, which is just as important as doing something with a pen or a computer.
I agree. There's a lot of chatter about like Gen Z these days. For 100, they're just the new target. Like millennials kind of went tag, you're it, and now Gen Z is the target of ridicule. But I know that there's been a strong uptick among that age group going directly to vocational skill sets. They just have they're like, explain to me why taking on that debt for a 4-year degree is going to help when chances are AI is going to take that job anyway.
Yeah, well, AI is big right now, but you have to realize that every kid isn't made for trade school either.
No.
Some kids should go to college. And you never know who's going to be the one to make a difference.
That's true.
And so you've got to let them experiment a little bit, and you have to really.
And as Caddyshack pointed out, the world needs ditch diggers too.
I really don't.
Set up again, no problem, bud.
Yeah, there he goes.
So I think we you're talking about whether they're going to be professional athletes or even good athletes versus reading, writing, arithmetic, and whatnot, and college life. And we kind of fell into the latter. We were really on the college-bound track, I think, early on. Like, I was in honors classes and whatnot, when we got to high school and whatnot. But again, in that regard, you weren't especially worried or like pressuring us about grades and such either. No.
Well, we were lucky. I mean, you guys, with Mom being home when you guys were little, she used to help you with your homework, and she'd make sure you had your assignments done. And by the time you were in 3rd or 4th grade, you just had it.
Yeah.
You knew that that's what you had to do every day. You came home, you did your homework, and you were a reader. You liked to read. And it was you just picked it up on your own. And like everything was going along at a nice pace. So, let's see where it goes, and what's the big deal, it's if they go to, we knew you were going to get into a good college, and we just said, well, let's see how it works out. I mean, they'll figure out what they want.
I'm sure in the back of your mind, I went to, people, I forget if it's known or not, but I went to Lehigh University, so did Thomas, went to Lehigh private university. Did a part of you go, God damn it, why couldn't he have gone to public university?
Wow. I don't have any regrets. I mean, I don't look back, and however it turned out, but I think I had a conversation with you, you probably don't remember it, where I said, well, if you go to Monmouth, or if you go to Rutgers, I could pay for law school, go to Lehigh.
That's it, you're done, pal.
I'm done, yeah. But Lehigh, I remember when you were going to Lehigh, and I'm trying to reach back in my memory because things come in and go out so quickly. You wanted to major, they had a special program that was business and computer science.
Right.
And it was the only program in the country like that. And it was a great school, and this is what you wanted. And I explained it. I was
very like, this is it. Like in my heart, I'm done thinking like, this is what I want. I was very singularly focused.
I actually sat down with you with a pencil and paper, and I explained to you how much college debt meant and what it would cost every month when you got out of school, and how long it would take to pay it off. And you basically said, well, I'm going to make a lot of money, don't worry about it. So I said, well, he wants to do it, let's do it. What the hell?
What a dumbass.
It's okay. The worst that'll happen is I'll have to pay off some debt. Maybe I'll be in a position to help out when he gets out of school, but you never know, right?
0 for 2.
Yeah, you never know what the future's going to bring, right?
Right. Well, I mean, 2 things happened with that. One, I dropped out of that program after about 3 semesters.
Well, I was going to say that, but then it bit my tongue because...
No, it's fine.
I think, all of a sudden it was like, this is boring.
Well, it wasn't boring. So when the program I intended to go into was a dual degree. So you were going to get, and it was a little overloaded on credit. It was like, my eyes were probably a little bigger than my stomach in hindsight. Because you're going to take a few extra credits to make sure you got equal aptitude in both computer science and business.
Right.
But what they kind of like hid from you was that meant you had to take the entire engineering core of course load, which was hard. Like it was like MIT caliber calculus. Like it wasn't, they don't mess around. And so that was a lot. It was just a lot to take on, and it became just and I also started to, at this point, I had interned on the floor of the Mercantile Exchange.
Right.
And that was the most amazing thing I had ever seen in my life, to be front row to seeing the trading with the hand signals and like I got. It was almost not like it was almost like, man, he never really should have done this. This was like, and this was set his expectations way too high. But I started to get introduced to those traders who were independent guys, and it was basically like, let me get this straight. You show up, bullshit with your buddies, you work for about 4 hours a day, and you make $1 million a year. Done. Sign me up for that. Which is not something you want a 19-year-old guy to like be introduced to necessarily, but I was like smitten by that concept. It's like, oh, you just go, show up, hang out with your buddies on the exchange floor. There's a keg in the corner, then you guys just, make you trade some crude oil contracts, and then you get to drive home in your Ferrari. It's like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
It's not as easy as it looks, though, right?
Right.
It takes a special type of person, and you need contacts. I mean, a lot of those guys were placed into those jobs by people they knew. And
we had a little of that. The reason I showed up there was because we had the familial connection. Yeah. But it was a great place to be. It was just unfortunate and almost ironic that I decided to pull back on some comp sci training because I was so smitten with this trading aspect, but that all got replaced by computer science algorithms and servers and whatnot. So it was sort of a whipsaw there for a little bit of those years.
Yeah, I know. You just never know with the computers the way they are, what jobs are going to be around in 20 years.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it really is... it's constantly changing, and I think you realize now that you have to continue your learning, and
yeah,
that's the most important thing, is to always be preparing yourself for the next opportunity, because opportunities dry up pretty quickly now.
Yeah, I think of it as just you got to constantly be reorienting yourself a little bit these days. Right. Like last month when I was talking, we were saying how retraining, certifications and whatnot, we have to, instead of that being maybe a once every 5-year process, that's like a once every 6 to 12 month thing now. Right. If you're not constantly kind of just dripping into the pool of concepts, you're gonna turn around one day and realize you feel like you're 3 years behind the curve.
Well, they've been talking about that forever. I mean, I remember when I first started in business, like back in 1979, they said you have to continue your education. You have to continue to learn. Things are going to continue to change.
Right.
And, I focus mainly on internal training with the company. And looking back, maybe I should have, pursued a master's or pursued some kind of technical degree or something like that. But by the time I realized that, I was so deeply entrenched in my work.
Right, sometimes you
got 3 kids at home. I'm not going back to school full time. There's no way, So, but it worked out nice for us. No complaints.
I never at all thought ourselves in a bad position. Like growing up, I thought we were like top of the world. And we're average folk in hindsight. Like we were maybe not average folk, but we were
average. We were kind of different in the respect that we were kind of a throwback family. How many families did you know back then where the mother stayed home? Everybody had two incomes, and
did they? Even back then, you perceived it that way?
Yeah.
Because like today, it's the idea of only one parent working and the other being home sounds extremely dangerous, right? It's like it sounds almost irresponsible to be so like to be yourself, have one income.
Well, it takes a special type of person to want to stay home, because everybody wants to, get out there in the working world. They want to talk to other adults. And
sure.
They want to experience different things, and they want to be independent in some respects.
Right.
You want to have your own job with your own income.
Yeah.
But I remember Mom was working on Wall Street when you were born.
Yep.
And I fully expected her to go back to work.
By the way, that's probably our most popular episode when Mom was on. We're gonna try to top that here. This is just the baby's here just to goose the whole thing.
No, but it was when she came home and said, "Well, who's gonna watch the baby?" Well, I said, "Well, I was a claims adjuster at the time, and I was able to work from home and make my own appointments." I said, "Well, I can watch the baby."
Yeah.
And I think she didn't really say it, but in her mind she was thinking, well, this baby's going to be either strapped to a golf cart or dropped off at grandma's house every day, because there's no way he's going to do this.
Right.
And so I said, well, but she decided that was the best route. And I said, hey, you know what? about time I paid attention to my job anyway, so.
Nothing will motivate you like the possibility of poverty and destitution. Right?
So I had to buckle down a little bit, and I had to pay attention at work, and I got a few promotions, and it worked out well. But I really think that was a shock. That was really a shock to me. Is that okay? Yeah. I guess I have to be an adult now, and
right. It's all shit. This is not this.
But it was good though. It turned out great, but it was just different. But a lot of our friends had two people working.
Two family incomes.
Yeah. And you find over the years your friends change. Getting back to the kids, whatever your kids are doing.
That's where you end up kind of being involved.
You're there,
and then you meet those people, and
And there's some really, really interesting people you meet along the way.
Right.
You meet other parents, and they do different things, and you get to be friendly with some, and you stay away from others, But it really, what you realize though is that you develop friendships, and then your son decides he doesn't want to play baseball anymore.
It's like you're never going to see those people again. Right?
Yeah. Same thing with, I think Thomas was on the same soccer team for years.
Yeah.
From the time he was probably 9 until the time he was 16. So we knew all those people.
Yeah, I remember that crew.
So it was good. As a matter of fact, one year we went skiing with them.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that. Now that I never would have thought of that until you said it, but I remember that.
And it was interesting because Mom broke a wrist.
Oh, that was that year. Yeah.
I think it was New Year's Eve, if I recall, and we spent the night in the emergency room, and you guys spent the night with everybody at the party.
Good times.
But
those are the memories that you keep with you. Those types of stories.
But it just popped into my head. But the point is, when he was 16, he decided he didn't want to be on that team anymore. He wanted to move on to a different team and a better league and do something else. So
that's it.
You don't see those people anymore.
So long. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was a good stretch, but you have to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, things are always changing. We ended up a little bit in the opposite way because when we decided to move down here, it became. My skill sets and trainings and whatnot, I was good and I was confident that I could find something new if necessary in my field, right? I knew that I could, I had a good enough value on the market that I could find something. So when we decided to make the move down and get out of New York City, I was the one who said all right, I'm gonna leave I was an assistant vice president, so I almost did what Mom did in some respects. I was an assistant vice president and I was sort of queued up on a career track, but then I said, well, I'm the one who's gonna find something different and leave because I could probably find something about on par. I wouldn't have to take some massive cut to get out of there. So that was sort of the mental calculus of it. And that's kind of what ended up happening, right? We kept my wife kept our job and I changed and I rolled over, and then there was this epic saga of me finding a job here.
It really was a bold move to come all the way down here, but I think you made the right choice.
Well, we'll see. It goes back to that work-life balance we were talking about at the front, where I'd have been in the office 5 days a week a year and a half ago if we were still in New York, I'm sure, which would have made it, and not only that, it would have been a much longer commute. I'll credit you this because I remember growing up that you would have that long commute. You worked out in Long Island for a while, you walked down in South Jersey. You had to go where you had to go for sort of all the reasons you were kind of stating beforehand. And I made mental notes of that, and I remember thinking man, that looks like it sucks.
Some days were harder than others, but the reality is you do what you have to do.
Sure.
And if you have a good partner, Mom was home, and she took care of everything. I remember when I had to go ahead, when I took that job in Long Island, the job was in Freehold. And then very quickly they gave me more responsibility. Then I had an office in Parsippany, and I had one in Turnersville, and I had one So I was there about a year and a half, 2 years maybe, and they told me that there was a project going on. They were doing, and they needed me to go to Bethpage every day for 6 months.
So for point of reference, that means that Bethpage is in way eastern tip of Long Island.
Well, it's in the middle of Long Island, but it's a good 60, 70 miles on the Bell Parkway. And,
right, 60, 70 miles through like the dense New York metropolitan area.
Yeah. So I said to the boss, I went into him and I said, look, I'll do whatever has to be done here, but it's getting to be ridiculous. I'm here till 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
And then I drive home.
Yeah.
And then I have to get up at 5 o'clock to come back, and it's, so he says, well, he understands that. So he got me a hotel room.
What a guy.
Across the street from the office. He says, you want to stay in the hotel? Stay in the hotel. You want to go home? Go home. And during that period, they had an office in Florida, which I had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
But it was a father and son operation. The father was like an 80-year-old man, and the son was probably in his 50s. And the son wanted to close the office in Florida.
Pull a little closer to you, just be sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go, perfect.
So, long story short, the son called me into the office, and he says, you have to go down to Florida and close my father's office. Mm-hmm. So I said, how could that possibly work? And he owns the company. I can't go down there and do that. So
the son told you, just an employee, go close my father's office down.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So it was kind of a tough assignment. So I went into the CEO's office, the COO, and I said, Bobby wants me to go down and close Billy's office. He says, what do you think? He says, well, it's insane. He says, that's not going to happen. He says, why don't you go back and tell Billy, the son, that you'll go down there and help him fix the office so it becomes profitable. And if it doesn't become profitable, then you can close the office. But at least, try to make it work.
Yeah.
So I had a stint there where a car was picking me up at my hotel room in Bethpage every Wednesday morning. And I got on a plane, and the owner met me in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, at the airport with a bagel and a bag, and said,
there you go.
Dropped me off at the office. And at about 3 o'clock, he came back with his wife, an 80-year-old man and his wife, and they took me to the diner for dinner, and then drove me to the airport. And the next day, I had the report.
At 4 p.m., you're at the diner eating dinner.
Yeah, so it was one of those crazy situations. But Mom was home handling everything at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't worry about it at all because she had it under control.
I actually don't have a great memory of that, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't remember what it's been exactly.
Truthfully, everything I told you is the extent of my memory. It's a blur.
Fair enough.
It's a blur. But yeah, there were times there where it was very difficult, but you know what? You just say to yourself, well, this is the assignment for today, and I'm going to do this job to the best of my ability, and I'm going to try to get home for these special occasions. And for the most part, I think that was an oddball situation. It was that was
the extreme.
It was a 6-month period where I really had some challenges there, getting back and forth. But for the most part, I came home every night, and
I remember us being home. You'd be home for dinner most
nights.
times.
Yeah.
We watch some Jeopardy or something on that. Yeah.
When I always remember this, like you guys, I used to like to talk to you guys because you used to say things that I felt were very insightful.
All right.
So when I started working for this company, I was coaching baseball and I was coaching basketball and doing all this crap. So
he's good.
Hey, there you go.
By the third one, you're just like, yeah, he's fine.
Well, not always.
Okay, well, yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I used to come home and tell Mom that, I don't know how, the way I got that job was, when I started working for Royal Insurance way back when.
Yeah.
The first day I was there, they told me that they're trying to sell the company. Mm-hmm. And they were really worried that everybody was going to quit because the word on the street was they're going to sell the company.
So everybody's going to, like rats off a ship?
Yeah, so I was there about 2 months. Mm-hmm. And it was a small office, maybe 20, 25 people. And like 6 of the claims adjusters quit in that first period. And I was brand new. I didn't know anything. I was still a trainee. So they called me into the office and they said to me, well, really, we're going to be around. So are you thinking about quitting? And I said, well, through process of elimination, I'll be president in no time.
Right, yeah.
And they just laughed, and I hung in there, and I stayed 17 years.
Oh, well, you made it.
And it was a good job. I mean, I went up the ranks. I was a manager. You probably remember going to my office in Freehold.
Vaguely, we were small, yeah.
Sometimes I'd have to work on the weekends, and I'd take you guys down there, and you'd bring your Power Rangers and whatever.
Yeah.
But after 17 years, the company in Long Island actually bought our New Jersey business. So just prior to that, my bosses knew that was happening. They moved me from Freehold to Parsippany. So I had to commute to Parsippany every day. And after the sale went through, one of the guys that I used to work with came back to me and said, hey, we need somebody to be a vice president over here that understands the operation. And he explained to me, all the benefits, and they offered me a big raise and, company car and all this stuff. And so I said to him, well, I should really discuss this with my wife, but nothing she says is going to change my mind.
Right.
So I'm going to go, Yeah. So I resigned and I went over to that other company. But
that father and son company you were saying,
yeah. But I truthfully, I think that if they didn't sell, I would have stayed with the same company for 40 years.
Yeah.
And got my gold watch and left. But it didn't work out that way. And like I said, no complaints. But it was really going from a real conventional company to the Wild West. I mean, there were no rules where I was going. It was just, crazy. So.
That's it. How many jobs would you say you've had? Like real, reasonable career company jobs. The career, let's say company changes, not like promotions within a company. Like how many different companies have you worked with?
Well, I got out of college in '77. And 77 was a very, very bad year. It was kind of like when you got out of college.
Yeah.
Like it was
nothing like having a finance degree in 2008.
Yeah, inflation was ridiculous. There were no jobs. And so I took a job when I was in high school and part of college. I worked for 5 and 10 at McCrory's store.
Okay.
And I went back to my old boss and he got me a job as an assistant manager at McCrory's because I just needed a paycheck. And then from there, I worked there about 6 months and I went to a job fair and there was a guy from Kmart there.
Oh.
And he made me an offer of probably about $50 a week more to be the ladies' wear manager in Kmart.
So now you're making the big bucks working at Kmart.
So yeah, and it was okay, but two things happened there. I knew I wasn't going to stay there. It was like me substitute teaching. It's like I'm doing this now, but this is not what I do. Well, so. Actually, what happened was the reason I left there was because some of my friends wanted to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and it was hard to get the time off.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, well, work here, go to Mardi Gras.
It's easier to quit and go to Mardi Gras than it is.
I'll deal with it when I come back.
Yeah.
But one of my friends who worked at Kmart had a brother who was a claims adjuster.
Okay.
And he explained to me what that was all about. And I said, I think I could do that. So when I came back, I went to an employment agency that specialized in that kind of work. And then I went and they got me a job at Royal. But I worked at Royal for 17 years.
Go on.
Then I went to the next company that bought us out. That was called Robert Plan.
Yeah.
And then Robert Plan decided to fold their operations. So AIG was our reinsurer.
Yeah.
So my boss knew people at AIG, and they got me an interview over there, and I went from Robert Plan to AIG with basically, no gap. And then AIG hit the skids when they
in 08 themselves.
Yeah,
right,
so
right.
when that happened, and Farmers moved in, and then Farmers used to write all business west of the Mississippi.
Okay.
And AIG's business was all east of the Mississippi. So Farmers bought all the
Very
business.
Crips Blood sounding.
Yeah, it was, but they came in and bought it, and I just went with the trade. So really, I was with 4 different insurance companies. But it was really like not changing at all.
Okay.
Because I went from being at Royal, and then Royal sold the business to Robert Plan, so all the people went with that. So I just stayed with them as a manager, and I knew half the staff. I had to learn the other half of the staff. Then I went to AIG, and I knew a lot of those people because I worked with them from the Robert Plan. And then when Farmers bought, they kept all the AIG people. So I kind of just stayed in the flow, and I just kept my head down. I kept working, and I was able to not miss a paycheck for all those years.
Great.
So it worked out good. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying because I've had a jumpy career. Like I've worked at 5 banks, and it's just because you go where the money is a lot of times, and this bank decides to have a big infusion and investment in, say, infrastructure and IT, and now they're paying 10, 20, 30% premiums, and you kind of like, oh, I'll go over there, and then I've hopped around and whatnot, and then I've gotten, one of my best skill sets is onboarding, getting acclimated quickly to the culture, to the way they're operating, because it can be so, it's somehow always exactly the same but totally different. Right. It's weird in that regard. They're all trying to accomplish the exact same goals and objectives, but the pathway and the personalities trying to achieve those goals are so wildly different. Sometimes really sharp. I've been both. I've showed up at a new place and been both horrified at the disarray, and also so impressed at the efficiency and drive to the goal line. Right. And I've hoped at each place I've tried to pick and choose. I've taken that works really well. I'm going to pocket that and remember that it's something that I might need later. Yeah. And also I'd be like, well, that's terrible. I'm always going to be on the lookout when something like that comes around, because I know that that's a big red flag.
Yeah, and you never know when something you're doing now is going to come back in the future, and you're going to be able to use those skills or those survival skills or whatever you want to call them. But it is the longer you work, the more you see the similarities in the businesses, and what I always found is there's no loyalty with them. Nobody's loyal. Companies are not loyal to their employees. Right. But managers are loyal to their employees. Yes. So if you got a good manager, work is easy. But if you got a real jerk, it makes it hard. Like I always remember. I very much agree with you. I've changed companies at the behest of a manager calling me to let go, but I've never said that's the company. These guys are this is the place. And to the company, you're just a number. Sure. Unfortunately, when I worked at the Robert Plan, I had to lay off a few people. And a few. Well, names really don't come into the game. It's all numbers. Or position titles and such. I need 15 people to do this job. Who has the most seniority? And the worst employee could have the most seniority, and you got to keep them because. They really focus on that way. They're worried about getting sued and every other thing. So anyway, long story short, when you see the internal workings, you realize that you do your best every day, and the best you can do as an employee is when your time comes to get laid off, you want them to say, geez, I really don't want to lose this guy, but he's going anyway. Right. You maybe get that call back or something. Yeah. So it's just what it is. But speaking of managers, I had a guy, and I really liked this guy, but he was insane. He came into my office, I was the manager in the freehold office, and never met the guy. He came from the Midwest. And he came at lunchtime one day, unannounced, and he came in the back door. Yeah. And he came and he sat in my office. And so I came back from lunch, and he was sitting in my office. And I said hi, and I told me his name, and I realized who he was, and then we sat and we had a little conversation. And in the course of the conversation, he said to me, well, I see you have no pictures of your family in here. And I said, well, I like to keep work separate from family, and it's an office, and I just like to keep it a little separate. I'm friendly with all the people here, but we don't go out socially or anything. And he says, I really like that. He says, because I don't like to get to know my employees because eventually I have to fire them all. The first conversation. And I said, well, hopefully, you'll be gone before that happens.
Right. The next day I brought in all these pictures of my families and friends. I brought the kids in to give a big hug to Uncle whatever.
Harry, I shouldn't say his name, but
he's not going to listen to this.
Oh, he's probably dead.
All right, that works too.
But I had another guy. We were at a training meeting.
Yeah.
And first training meeting I was at with farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes everybody stand up.
Okay.
We're all standing there. He says, all right, everybody get on one leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes us stand there for like 2 minutes on one leg. He says, are you feeling a little off balance? Are you feeling a little dizzy? He says, that's how you should feel when you go to work every day. What kind of nut is this,
Like, how does that help?
Yeah, I said, okay. So now we know what we're into,
Here you go, buddy. Yeah. There we go.
There you go. Good work.
Alrighty.
What a good boy.
He wanted to join in on the conversation is what it was.
So anyway, getting back to the kids, I really, really enjoyed coming home every day from work and seeing you guys when you were little.
Yeah.
And it was the highlight of the day, So, but we used to talk about it at work, and we used to say any day you don't come home is a wasted day. Because
that's a good philosophical piece of advice.
It was because the work will be there.
Yeah.
We know that. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do. You have to go on a business trip. But it was sometimes it was not convenient to go on business trips.
No.
Like leaving mom home with 3 sick kids. See ya.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a week.
Part of you is like, yes.
Yeah, you felt bad, but like I said 100 times, she could handle whatever came up. So I was very lucky in that regard. So I didn't worry too much about it, but I did feel bad from time to time and I didn't travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my business trips were maybe twice a year, 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And then I had those couple of stints where I got in crazy situations and I had to be away for a while. But over the years, I think I made it home mostly every night. And, And was able to get to baseball practice. And
yeah, you did a great job.
And I tried, but, the thing is, you can't undo what you did, and you can't do it over again. So it is what it is.
It is what it is, right?
So you just have to make it. Every day you do the best you can, and some days are good, some days not so good. And so try again tomorrow. That's it.
Well, I think that Zen Master Wisdom is a good place to leave things off. We got this guy getting a little bit ornery, but you got any last thoughts there, little guy? If you. No, you're just enjoying sucking on that bottle. I hear you.
I'm glad we got down to see you guys. Took too long, but
that's all right. No big deal. We got it done, and there'll be plenty of opportunities in the future. But
all right.
Yeah, I want to thank you for being on the episode this month. This will drop just after Father's Day, but it was a good Father's Day.
Oh, happy Father's Day!
Happy Father's Day to everyone. It would have just passed when this drops on the 21st, and so I'm going to ask everybody to like and subscribe. This is going to drop on YouTube, Spotify, and then we have the Substack drop every Tuesday. Those are the news articles and op-eds. We got the TraderDads.com store where we've gotten some sales going. Some people are really interested in the merch and the swag. And lastly, Instagram and Twitter, X, we're there as well. So, are there any last parting words you want to say or anything else?
I would say, enjoy them while they're young.
Yeah, that's true.
It really is amazing. Mm-hmm. When you see the kids grow up, and when they're little like that, you can't imagine that he's going to be the next president of the United States or the next kicker on the Panthers. You just never know, right?
Never know what he's going to do. Maybe he's going to grow up and have a podcast.
No
podcast. No podcast.
Like that idea.
No. All right. No.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Okay.